Thank you for inviting me. I'm not going to speak in detail about the current situation. I think you probably see quite a lot of it on the news. I watch Al Jazeera several hours a day, and it's sickening what you see. I would like to take a look from a historical perspective and explain why a lot of the things that are happening and have happened were not coincidental. They were not only predictable, but predicted. If you paid attention to the sort of root of the historical unfolding. For example, you hear that Biden, if you follow the news, you hear that Biden is now suggesting that out of this current mess, when the war is over, there will be a two-state solution, so-called. My prediction is that Israel will resist to the hilt any such suggestion. In fact, what occurred on the 7th of October, the outrages that were perpetrated there were directly resulting from Netanyahu's insistence to prevent any such thing as a two states, any such thing as a Palestinian state in part of historical Palestine. It is on the record that he actually fostered Hamas in the Gaza Strip precisely in order to divide the Palestinian people among two competing authorities and to make sure that not only the so-called two-state solution, which is in any case an illusion, will not materialize, but even talk about it will cease. He was actually becoming allergic to talk about a two-state solution. And precisely because of this, he fostered the domination of Hamas in the Gaza Strip and allowed funds to be funneled from Qatar to the Hamas authority in Gaza via Israel. So he's not going to allow a two-state solution. What is unfolding in the Gaza Strip, if you follow the actual events on any reliable broadcasting service, I think Al Jazeera is probably the most reliable in this context. You will see that what is taking place is actually ethnic cleansing. This is what ethnic cleansing looks like. People talk about genocide. Genocide is a juridical, legal term. I would prefer to, I'm not denying that it's genocide, but I'm not making a juridical, legal case in international law. I'm saying politically what is actually happening is ethnic cleansing. When you destroy a whole area inhabited by 2 million and a quarter people, make it uninhabitable, and send over 1 million people to move without any provision of food, water, or shelter. That is what ethnic cleansing looks like. Ethnic cleansing, too, has been predictable. And in fact, predicted. I predicted it some time ago. I didn't predict it would happen in Gaza. That would start in Gaza. That is a result of unpredictable particular events. But that Israel is going to attempt ethnic cleansing was predictable and predicted. Now, why is all this? I think you have to look at Zionism. Now, Zionism is an ideology, it is a movement, but mainly, and what we should focus on is it is a project. There is such a thing as a Zionist project. This is what Zionism was set up to do, to accomplish, and since it was founded in the late 1890s, and it formulated a project. The project has been discussed internally in the Zionist movement. They were not too keen to discuss it openly in front of the international public because they didn't want to sort of, as it were, frighten the horses. But eventually it came out with a precise formulation of the aim of this project. Most clearly, it was formulated in the so-called Biltmore Conference that took place in the Biltmore Hotel in New York in May 1941. And if you look at it, they are quite open that the aim of the Zionist project is colonization of Palestine by Jews in order to set up a Jewish nation state. And that applies not to part of Palestine, but to the whole of Palestine, as it was then under the British mandate, from the river to the sea, as the saying goes. There are certain consequences that follow from this project. And by the way, the state of Israel is not only a product of this Zionist project, but also at the same time an instrument for its completion, extension, and implementation. It is both a consequence and a tool for its extension. What did this imply? It implied, and by the way, talk about colonization was then not problematic in the West, at least. The Zionist movement did not hesitate to describe what it was aiming to do as colonization. That was the accepted term then. Later on, when colonization became a no-no word, they used other term, but colonization was then the standard way of describing what was taking place. Now, this idea of colonization of Palestine by Jews in order to form a Jewish nation state had certain consequences as to the form, the kind of colonization that was about to take place. In modern history, there were several types of colonization. I won't go into the precise details, it would take too long. Let me just say that the term that is used very commonly nowadays in order to describe the Zionist colonization is settler colonialism. I find this term not sufficiently precise, and it is certainly not the right one to use from a Marxist point of view. Settler colonialism applies to places where there were a substantial number of settlers actually from Europe mainly, settling in a given colony. This applies equally to South Africa and to Israel-Palestine. However, from a Marxist point of view, these two belong to quite different species of colonization. the key to understanding it is look at the political economy. The political economy of South Africa, as also to other in other Western, French, and British colonies in the rest of Africa, this type of colonization depended on the exploitation of the indigenous labor power. The main direct producers in South Africa, as in Kenya, as in other British colonies and French colonies in Africa, the main direct producers were indigenous people. The settlers were a minority, crystallizing as a quasi-class. Zionist colonization belonged to quite a different kind of political economy, in which the main direct producers were themselves settlers. This is what took place in Canada, in Australia, in the non-slave part of North America, which became the United States. I mean, I'm talking about the part of the United States outside the slave states. In the slave states, of course, the economy was that of plantation, in which the direct producers were slaves imported from Africa mainly. Zionist colonization necessarily belonged to the same type as in Canada, Australia, etc. Why? It was clear to the Zionist leaders and planners that they are not going to get a Jewish nation state if the colonization of Palestine relied on the labor power of the indigenous people. These are always, the direct producers are always a majority. No Jewish nation state could arise if Zionist colonization were to depend on the labor power of the indigenous people, and therefore they resisted it. What was to be done with indigenous people? The indigenous people, from the point of view of this type of colonization, are surplus to requirement. Hence, there is a constant drive for ethnic cleansing. Get rid of them. This is what happened in places like Australia. In Tasmania, they got rid of the indigenous people by simply killing them off. They were annihilated. In other places, they were ethnically cleansed, reduced to a remaining minority. If you look at the situation in Israel-Palestine, you will find that unlike in the African colonies, where the direct producers were the indigenous people, unlike there, the settlers, the Jewish settlers that Zionism brought to Palestine are not a small minority. Neither are they an overwhelming majority as in North America, as in Australia, as in New Zealand. This indicates that the Zionist project is still work in progress. It is not incomplete, and it is incomplete from the point of view of the Zionist project and the vast majority of the political parties that you find in Israel, both in government and in opposition, who are officially and inherently and insistently committed to the Zionist project. The Zionist project is, as it were, the state religion of Israel, in addition to the Jewish religion, to which not all of the Israeli Jews are devout adherents. You'll find many secular Jews, but as far as the ideology of Zionism and the project of Zionism, this actually is supported in an explicit and extreme way by the vast majority of the political spectrum among Israeli Jews. Okay, so from this point of view, it is clear that in order to complete the project, the Jewish settlements of Palestine has to encompass the whole of the territory. This is why there is a dominant resistance to the idea of a two-state solution in the real sense of the word. The existence of a Palestinian state alongside Israel, it is a real state and not just a sort of Bantustan, is inimical to the fundamental aim of Zionism to colonize the whole of Palestine as a Jewish state. In fact, a comrade of mine and I published an article quite a long time ago explaining why Israel is going to resist the creation of a Palestinian state alongside Israel. When I say a long time ago, I mean a very long time ago. This article was published in 1976. That's some time ago. And I've been saying and explaining a lot since then why Israel is going to resist. Of course, when there is pressure coming from the United States for the creation of a Palestinian state alongside Israel, they say, yes, but there are certain conditions. They either evade it by putting all sorts of conditions which they know the Palestinians are not going to accept, or simply shut it down, as Netanyahu attempted to do, shutting down all pressure by fostering two competing Palestinian authorities, one in Gaza and one in the West Bank, so that there will be nobody to make an agreement with. Okay. Now, as I just said, if you look at the historical direction of development, you will see that Zionism is still, the Zionist project is still work in progress. It is going in the direction of completion by making the Palestinian indigenous population of Palestine a small minority, a manageable minority, as they were in the Israel between the 1948 war and the 1967 war. They were then a manageable minority. However, the Israeli territory then extended not to the whole of Palestine, but to the about 72% of the entire territory. In the 1967 war, Israel got control of the whole of historical Palestine, but it has not achieved a Jewish majority. The achievement of Jewish majority, which is the aim of the Zionist movement, a necessary condition for the creation of a stable Jewish state, is ethnic cleansing. This is why the whole direction of development is moving towards ethnic cleansing. This was predictable. It was predicted some time ago. I've been writing about it for several years now. Of course, it couldn't be predicted that it would start in Gaza. Actually, it looked more likely to start in the West Bank, because it is very easy to see how the majority of the population of the West Bank would be pushed across the Jordan in the direction of the Kingdom of Jordan. In order to conclude, I just want to raise one more point. If you look historically at the Zionist project, it has been extraordinarily successful. There are few political projects that date from that point in history, that is to say late 19th century, that have been consistently successful in implementing their aims. The Zionist movement was founded at about the same time that the Russian Social Democratic Workers' Party, consisting of both Bolsheviks and Mensheviks, was founded, about the same time, same year. Compare the success of one project to the success or lack of it of the other project. We can go into the various historical reasons, but there have been several reasons why it has been so successful. I don't want to go to all of them. Some of them were accidental, not foreseeable, but one of them depended on a conscious strategic decision that the Zionist movement made right from the beginning, from its inception. And that is the following. As I said, Zionist colonization belongs to a type of family of colonizations that depended on the direct producers as the main, on the settlers as the main direct producers. However, it is rather exceptional in many ways. I've written several articles explaining in what way Zionist colonization is exceptional, even in this category of similar colonizations, depending on the self-work of the settlers. But one salient feature in which it is exceptional in that it had no natural mother country. If you look at Australia, for example, if you look at North America, the settlers there were nationals of an empire that sent them to colonize the territory and backed them until they became an independent country. Zionist colonization did not have a mother country, did not have its own metropolis. The settlers there were not nationals of an empire that sent them to colonize Palestine. Because of this, Zionist colonization from the beginning realized that it needed a surrogate mother. A surrogate mother would be whichever imperial power dominated the area of the Middle East. It went through certain stages. They tried Germany before the First World War. During the First World War, Britain became the surrogate mother of Zionist colonization. This was sealed, as it were, the instrument which sealed this relationship was the Balfour Declaration of the 2nd of November 1917. Of course, Britain did not remain the dominant empire in the area. It declined. And for this and other reasons, Zionism had to seek other mother countries, other surrogate mothers. There was a phase in which is now largely forgotten, in which France became the surrogate mother. But from the 1960s, from the mid-1960s, it was the United States that has become the surrogate mother. Now, this relationship depended on a deal. And it was clear from the beginning that the deal between the Zionist colons and the surrogate mother would be a kind of deal. Herzl, the founder of political Zionism, wrote in his diary, and this dates from the late 19th century, we shall be for Europe, he didn't think of the United States there, we shall be for Europe a bastion against Oriental barbarism. In other words, the new colony would be an instrument, a junior partner of the empires supporting it, delivering services rendered in exchange for staunch protection by the surrogate mother. This has been the relation, certainly since the mid-1960s, between Israel and the United States. It is this relationship which gives the Zionist project such stability and success. I would like to stop here. I've, I think, exhausted my 20 minutes plus. So that's I think, I leave it as a starting point for further discussion.